So this video is going to be a little bit of a different format than I usually do. I am just videoing myself basically meal prepping on a Sunday night. This probably took me about 4 hours, but it was super worth it because it saved me many more hours of cooking and meal prep throughout the rest of the week. It was so much more worth it than having to stand in the kitchen and try to figure out what to make either super early in the morning before I leave for work or at night when I get home, figuring out what to do with meat that I've thawed, something that's quick. We have lessons to get to and from. I typically end up spending a couple nights a week having work to do. So, usually just like an hour here and there. So meal prepping on a Sunday like this, it really, really saves me so much time. During the week, I will just put on a show or put on some music and just really get into it. But the thing that has to happen before you do any of that, obviously, is making lists, making your meal plan, and grocery shopping. And so for me, that usually happens on a Saturday. Just getting it done beforehand, again, just super well worth it. So I'm going to start here with one of our favorites. My 10-year-old gobbles this up. I can't keep it in the fridge, and I love it, of course. Beets are super good for your kidneys, and I'm just a really big fan of Eat the Rainbow, y'all. It's the best thing for you. So I shred raw beets. You make sure to peel them, but shred them up and just put those in a bowl. Obviously the tops and the bottoms get saved. Sometimes I will save and freeze the grains, but in this instance today, I just decided to go ahead and put them in the basket as treats for the chickens. So I'm going to shred these up. That is going to be followed by thinly slicing some red onion. You can decide how much red onion that you want. And if you really hate onion, obviously leave it out. But I will say it adds a really, really nice bite to this salad. So I'd recommend it. And I think this one, again, it was just like some of an onion that I had left. I like it really thin sliced. You could even use a mandolin for this step if you wanted to. But you see I've got my beet and my onion there ready to go. And I use a couple different herb variations. Sometimes I'll use dill, sometimes thyme. You could throw garlic in there, but the two most important ingredients in this salad are the lemon juice and salt. Those are going to sort of help cook the onion and the beet without actually cooking them. That acid's really going to work on softening them. And as this has sat in the refrigerator for, a couple days, those flavors just deepen even more. So I've got a can of chickpeas, and you can, of course, cook your own chickpeas. I'll be honest with you, I sometimes have a hard time cooking chickpeas to the perfect consistency, and I find when I buy them canned, they're just absolutely already the perfect consistency. So throwing the chickpeas, the shaved red onion, the shaved beets, shredded beets, again, lots of salt, lots of lemon juice, and I used dill in this week's salad. But it's also really, really good with basil, even just dried or fresh. I've used both. And then you're just going to mix that all around. And yes, it will get your hands all pink, but your hands are your best tools, y'all, as long as they're clean and washed, which mine always are if I am cooking in the kitchen. And I'm just tasting here, see if anything else is needed. And then that goes in the refrigerator. And the next thing I'm going to go ahead and get started on is a beef stew. I've got some onion, celery, carrot. That's going to go in my Dutch oven, just a little bit of olive oil to brown and soften a little bit. And again, tried to make just a really big pot of this so that we've got enough to eat for dinner. And then I've got some to take for lunch for leftovers the next day. And then I've got maybe a little bit extra that I can go ahead and freeze because, again, you know, it's like if you prep a lot at once, you won't have to do as much later. I love a beef stew. Like, I don't mind eating it a couple times in a row, but obviously if you're not like a big fan of leftovers, you can always make it and then freeze it. But I always try to put a little bit extra, like 1 or 2 servings in the freezer. So if I'm working from home and I need a lunch, or, you know, we come up on a night where I forgot to take something out and thaw it, or I don't have stuff meal prepped, that, you know, then it's easy to just thaw out, throw it in a pot, and we've got dinner all ready to go. I like my veggies really rustically chopped. I don't like them, you know, super fine. And again, your carrot tops and bottoms, your onion ends, your onion skins are all really, really excellent for making stock. And if you save your chicken carcasses and freeze those, you could just throw that in the same bag. But I try to be as low waste, no waste in my kitchen as I possibly can. It just ends up saving so much later, and especially with how much soup we tend to eat in the wintertime, lots of soups and stews and crusty bread. I find it's always good to have ingredients to make soup on hand. So the next thing I'm going to get started is some black beans. I got these. I got a 25-pound bag from Azure Standard. Best place to get things from if you want to go ahead and buy in bulk. Again, you just do, you know, typically I do one big order like every 6 months, but then I'm really stocked with beans and sugar and cocoa powder and peanut butter and, you know, just things for a long time. And Azure Standard has a great quality standard, so everything is usually organic and just very high quality from there. This I've got, I think this was like a chuck roast or something like that, so I'm just going to part that out. And yes, the chickens got that beef fat and they absolutely loved it. You know, they're little carnivores. Everybody sort of thinks they just eat corn and seeds and grains, but they really, really love meat, y'all, and they will gobble it up. So, but again, I give them a lot of extra things and it works out perfectly because it just ends up coming back to us in really high quality eggs, which is super awesome. And again, as you can see, I'm not cutting anything perfectly same size, but I just like a really rustic stew. This stew cooks for a couple hours, so everything ends up being really, really just fall apart, kind of melting your mouth. I got the veggies a little bit browned in the olive oil and went ahead and threw the beef in there to, again, go ahead and try to brown it a bit. Oh, and then I forgot, this entire time I was making crispy chickpeas in the oven, and they turned out so good. You definitely have to bake them long enough so that they get crispy, but y'all, like, it was almost like snacking on bacon. Like, they were that delicious. I just used salt, pepper, a tiny bit of cumin, a little bit of coriander, and paprika, and they were absolutely amazing. Onion and garlic powder would be really good on those as well. So I'm just finishing slicing up my beef here. And the garlic I decided to put in last because you definitely don't want that to brown and burn. Then it will definitely not be good at all. And burnt garlic, I don't know about you, but I do not enjoy the taste of that at all. And this is definitely, the chuck roast, definitely not the most tender cut of meat. But again, when you are cooking it for hours, you're putting water or broth or whatever in there, it just cooks it down and it ends up falling apart and being so delicious and amazing. And sometimes I do use stock when I'm making stew, but for this one, you know, I started with a good base of everything. And so for this one, I just went ahead and added some water. You know, it creates like that sort of beef stock by cooking with the beef. Really, really good. And again, you could use a myriad of herbs and spices in this: thyme, rosemary, an Italian seasoning blend, whatever you like. Just getting the beef nice and browned here. It just really helps, like caramelizing kind of the outside of that beef just really helps to add so much flavor. And again, this is one of those things, it's just really easy to also pull out of the freezer and thaw. And always salt. I kind of let the meat like get like well browned in certain places, but I'm just adding in some paprika, add in the garlic when you're about done, adding in a teeny little bit of coriander. You don't want too much. Coriander is kind of an odd spice if you're not used to it. Putting in some basil, bay leaf. And that is just a little bit of tomato powder to kind of keep everything thick. And then this is a balsamic glaze that I have had for forever, and I've just been trying to find creative ways to use it up. But sort of the pungency of it went really good with the beef. Obviously Worcestershire sauce and a little bit of liquid smoke, what I had left. But all of those things just help add so much flavor and made this one of the best stews I think I've actually ever made. It was so good. And again, I was able to put a ton in the freezer, and we've got some for next time. And I added, I don't know, probably like about 6 cups of water, just enough to like just cover it. And let that cook down. Again, kind of rough cutting the potatoes, so they're kind of in chunks, but not like super small. And a good trick I learned too, if you ever happen to accidentally oversalt anything, potatoes are excellent to add. You could like shred them and add them, or you know, just throw them into whatever sauce, and they help soak up salt really, really well. So instead of having to add like more water or something to, you know, whatever you're cooking, potatoes are really great at soaking up salt. So if you ever oversalt anything, that's a good little trick that I learned. If obviously, again, you don't want to just like add more water or something to stuff, but that's not why I'm adding them here. Obviously, this is beef stew. It just wouldn't be right without potatoes. And another thing that I've added to this often, I didn't have any, I didn't want to have to go make a special trip to grab it, but is Guinness. You know, when you're cooking that stuff for so long, all the alcohol cooks out of it, so there's none left, but it is just so perfect. And here I'm making a big pot of black beans. I saw this thing with just doing like black beans. You could even do them refried with some cotija cheese, crumbled on top, and tortillas, and then doing like a tomato salad. And it looked so good, and I just decided, you know what, that's what I'm craving. So I had a lot of cumin and paprika, ancho chili powder. I like ancho chili because it's got some spice to it, but it's more smoky than it is spicy. So that is just a really nice flavor. And the onion, I'm going to put those in the pressure cooker and let those cook on high pressure for about 35 minutes. And the older beans get, the tougher they get, so the longer you'll have to cook them. But, you know, it's not a problem. Like if you end up cooking them and you take them out, you could just go ahead and add more later on. And then I prepped some sweet potato for breakfast. I like doing fried eggs on top of sweet potato with just like avocado, hot sauce, avocado and hot sauce, and even maybe sauteing some greens and putting that in there as well. So those sweet potatoes, I ate them for a little over a week and it was perfect again, but you could roast them and then freeze them if you made so much, and then just take out what you needed whenever you were done. I was flipping the chickpeas again because while they were doing great, they were not crispy enough, and I wanted to try to get them as evenly crispy as I possibly could. Throw those back in the oven, and then I also had a pan of granola going, which I also totally forgot that I was cooking that. But the base for my granola is usually always the same. It's just oats, flax seeds, chia seeds, and typically some kind of nut. Since my daughter is allergic to most nuts, I usually will just use almonds. Since they're nice and mild, peanuts are a little too strong, I think, for granola. They're just not as pleasant. And then some kind of oil. Again, my favorite to use is coconut oil and honey or maple syrup. And you can toss it, but you do have to keep a close eye on the granola because the sugar and the oil, it will burn if you're not careful. So you want to make sure you're flipping it about every 10 minutes and putting it back in the oven and letting it brown evenly and very slowly. And then those just go on a sheet pan with a bit of olive oil and salt and roast in the oven on like 350 to 375 for probably about, anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. And again, I also tried to flip these just so that they would cook pretty evenly. And by that point, the granola and the chickpeas were ready to come out. And this granola was absolutely perfect. We really enjoyed it. Again, you could eat it for breakfast. We don't really eat cereal for breakfast, though. For me, it's more of my late night snack, my snack on yogurt with some peanut butter when I want something sweet. And just, again, a really high fiber snack. And so with all of that, y'all, that was my week of meal prep. I did end up cooking a little bit throughout the week on the days that I worked from home, but this saved me a ton of time and just made super healthy, ready snacks for us throughout the week. And that made it so much easier to eat healthy and eat conscientiously throughout.